Dragons in the Pokémon world take many forms, some fierce and relentless, others gentle, mysterious, or quietly powerful. In tonight's video, we'll explore their stories one by one, starting with Dragonite. Dragonite is one of those Pokémon that quietly rewrites expectations. At first glance, it doesn't look like the fierce dragons found in ancient legends. Its expression is gentle, its features rounded, and its wings surprisingly small for such a large creature. Yet behind that warm exterior lies an incredible blend of strength, speed, and compassion that has made Dragonite one of the most iconic dragon types in the Pokémon world. Long before it reaches that majestic form, it begins life as Dratini, a mysterious serpent said to live hidden at the bottom of lakes and oceans, rarely seen by humans. That secrecy continues through Dragonair, a graceful dragon that glides silently through the air, controlling weather with subtle movements. Only after patience, growth, and quiet evolution does Dragonite finally emerge, revealing a completely different silhouette than many expect. Despite its bulky shape, Dragonite is astonishingly fast. Legends say it can circle the globe in just 16 hours, moving across skies and oceans with relentless determination. That speed isn't portrayed as aggressive pursuit. Instead, Dragonite often travels to help those in danger. Ships lost at sea tell stories of a massive orange dragon lifting damaged vessels to safety or guiding them through storms with calm persistence. In this way, Dragonite becomes something like a guardian of the skies and oceans, a protector as much as a powerhouse. Its intelligence is another defining trait. Dragonite understands complex situations, remembers faces, and displays emotional awareness rarely seen in many Pokémon species. Some stories describe Dragonite showing grief, empathy, or a sense of justice when confronted with cruelty. This emotional depth creates a subtle contrast between its gentle personality and its overwhelming power. When angered, Dragonite can be terrifying, storms forming above its head, ocean waves responding to its mood, but such moments are rare and usually born from witnessing harm or betrayal. Physically, Dragonite's design reflects peaceful strength. Its round snout, antenna-like horns, and sturdy limbs give it a welcoming appearance. The wings, though small in proportion, possess powerful musculature and aerodynamic control, enabling sudden bursts of altitude and speed. When Dragonite flies at twilight, its silhouette against the fading sky looks almost serene, a large drifting shape moving steadily toward distant horizons. Unlike predators that stalk and strike, Dragonite flies with purpose rather than hunger. In battle, Dragonite is known for versatility. It combines dragon-type resilience with the raw striking force of flying-type techniques. Moves like Dragon Claw, Outrage, and Draco Meteor showcase its destructive potential, while Roost, Thunder Punch, Fire Punch, and Ice Punch reveal how adaptable it is in different situations. Dragonite's hidden ability, Multiscale, reduces incoming damage when it is at full health, symbolizing the idea that a calm, well-prepared dragon can withstand even the harshest opening strike. Trainers who bond with Dragonite often lean into patience, strategy, and timing rather than reckless force. One of the most famous depictions of Dragonite comes from early Pokémon lore, where a colossal Dragonite towers above a lighthouse, dwarfing the structure as waves crash around it. That Dragonite wasn't there to attack. It appeared curious, almost lonely, drawn by the beacon that shone through dense fog. The scene hinted at an entire world of dragons that live beyond human awareness, massive beings traveling across oceans, appearing only occasionally when curiosity or need brings them close to civilization. Dragonite's compassion appears repeatedly across stories. In some accounts, it rescues drowning Pokémon. In others, it delivers mail and supplies across dangerous routes, using its speed to bridge distances that would otherwise isolate communities. Its kindness doesn't diminish its reputation. Instead, it enhances it. Dragonite becomes a reminder that power doesn't always exist for conquest. Sometimes, immense strength simply serves as the means to protect what matters. The evolutionary contrast between Dragonair and Dragonite has fueled years of discussion. Dragonair is sleek, mystical, and ethereal, associated with flowing water, clear skies, and elegant motion. Dragonite, by comparison, looks grounded and physical, built for endurance rather than grace. Yet both forms represent different sides of dragon mythology, the celestial serpent of legends and the benevolent guardian that soars above lands. Evolution, in Dragonite's case, isn't about becoming fiercer, it's about gaining broader purpose. Dragonite's connection to the ocean is especially notable. It lives on remote islands, nesting on cliffs overlooking expansive water. From these vantage points, Dragonite watches passing ships, weather changes, and migrating Pokémon. When storms rise, Dragonite senses the imbalance and often responds instinctively. Some sailors tell tales of Dragonite appearing in the heart of typhoons, navigating fearlessly through waves higher than buildings. With its immense wings and natural affinity for air currents, it can carve a safe path through weather chaos, guiding others to calm waters. Because of its rarity and intelligence, encountering a wild Dragonite is considered a profound experience. Villagers in remote areas sometimes share whispered stories of seeing one at dawn, perched on mountain peaks before vanishing into cloud cover. These sightings inspire awe rather than fear. People leave offerings on cliffside altars, not in worship, but in gratitude, acknowledging the silent guardianship that Dragonite embodies. In competitive contexts, Dragonite stands as a classic example of a late-stage powerhouse. Reaching its final form takes patience and careful training. Once fully evolved, it becomes one of the most balanced dragon types in existence, capable of both offense and defense. Its role isn't defined by a single specialty. Instead, it adapts, sometimes wall-like, sometimes aggressive, sometimes supportive, much like how it adapts to conditions in nature. Dragonite's personality lends itself to deep bonds with trainers. When trust forms, Dragonite displays loyalty that borders on unwavering devotion. It remembers moments of companionship, long flights, shared meals, battles fought together, and, in subtle ways, expresses affection. It lowers its head gently for pats. It wraps its large arms carefully around others, embracing with surprising tenderness. Despite being strong enough to shatter boulders, it always seems aware of its own weight and adjusts to avoid causing harm. In artwork and lore, Dragonite is sometimes depicted carrying travelers on its back, soaring far above the world. From that height, landscapes blur into patterns, rivers like silver threads, forests like deep green blankets, towns like clusters of glowing embers at night. Flights like these are said to feel calm rather than exhilarating, as Dragonite keeps motion smooth and steady. It doesn't stunt fly or show off. It chooses routes that avoid turbulence, almost as if understanding the value of gentle journeys. Weather remains deeply tied to Dragonite's mythological presence. Some regions believe that seeing Dragonite in the sky predicts peaceful weather the following day. Others think its wing beats disperse lingering storms, scattering clouds across the horizon. Scientific researchers in the Pokémon world have even hypothesized that Dragonite manipulates air pressure subconsciously, using micro-adjustments to maintain stability while flying. Whether magical or biological, This ability reinforces its image as a balancing force in nature. There are stories of Dragonite guarding secluded island habitats where rare Pokémon thrive. These sanctuaries remain untouched, largely because Dragonite silently patrols their borders. Trespassers who arrive with harmful intentions soon realize their mistake as a shadow passes overhead and an immense dragon lands before them. Dragonite rarely needs to fight in such situations. Its presence, towering, calm, unwavering, communicates enough to make intruders reconsider. Yet Dragonite is not perfect. It can become emotional, sometimes overprotective, reacting strongly when those it cares for are threatened. In rare moments of rage, it becomes difficult to calm, unleashing devastating energy through its dragon-type techniques. These events serve as reminders that kindness does not erase instinct, it simply guides it. Over time, Dragonite learns to rein in these surges, channeling intensity only when truly necessary. Symbolically, Dragonite represents harmonious strength, not the tyrannical dragon of old myths, but the guardian dragon, wise, empathetic, and guided by conscience. It bridges ancient mythology with modern storytelling, standing as both a fearsome creature of legend and a trusted partner. At sunset, Dragonite sometimes rests atop cliffs overlooking the ocean, wings folded, horns tilted slightly as it listens to distant waves. Seabirds circle lazily nearby, unafraid. The last light paints its scales orange and gold, blending seamlessly with the horizon. In these quiet moments, the dragon resembles a sentinel carved from the very colors of dusk, watching over a world that rarely notices how often it has been protected. When darkness finally arrives, Dragonite lifts off again, wings beating slowly, disappearing into cloud-covered skies. Somewhere across the water, storms continue, travelers move, and unseen guardians keep watch, one of them shaped like a dragon whose strength is matched only by its gentle heart. Haxorus is a dragon-type Pokémon defined by durability, discipline, and the relentless instinct to protect territory. Where some dragons embody mysticism or celestial themes, Haxorus represents raw, grounded survival. A dragon evolved not for symbolism, but for the demands of the land it inhabits. Its most striking feature is the pair of enormous axe-like tusks that curve from either side of its jaw. Those tusks aren't decorative. They are tools, weapons, and symbols of adulthood within its species, sharpened through years of use against stone, bark, and the armor of rivals. The line begins with Axew, a small dragon that spends its early life gnawing and scraping objects to harden its growing tusks. Even at that stage, training is constant. Axew grind their tusks against rock walls, smoothing imperfections, building strength, and preparing for the challenges ahead. Fracture, the middle evolution, takes that discipline further. It lives near rivers and cliffs, carving marks into trees to define territory. Each scarred trunk acts as both warning and record, showing just how many battles have taken place. Eventually, with patience and survival experience, Fracture becomes Haxorus, fully armored and confident, a dragon capable of reshaping entire landscapes with its tusks alone. Those tusks are harder than steel and surprisingly resilient. Unlike brittle blades that shatter under stress, Haxorus's tusks flex subtly, absorbing impact before cutting through obstacles with terrifying precision. Scientists in the Pokémon world theorize that their structure combines organic keratinic layers with mineral reinforcement, mimicking natural armor found in ancient creatures. Whatever their composition, their effect is undeniable. Haxorus can slice through massive boulders, iron gates, and even thick frost without dulling them. But Haxorus isn't mindlessly destructive. In many regions, it is respected because it maintains strict territorial rules rather than rampaging aimlessly. It establishes borders around lakes, forests, or cliff regions, patrolling regularly to ensure balance. Pokemon that wander harmlessly into its range are usually ignored. Threats, however, are confronted immediately. Rival dragons, invasive predators, or anything that endangers local habitats finds itself facing a dragon whose patience has limits, but whose sense of duty is unwavering. Despite its intimidating presence, Haxorus is rarely cruel. Its aggression serves purpose to defend territory, nest sites, and companions. When raising young, Haxorus exhibits surprising gentleness. They clear feeding grounds, dig shallow water pools, and stand guard through storms, tusks angled outward as silent warnings. Any attempt to disturb those areas is met with swift retaliation. But once the danger passes, Haxorus returns to calm vigilance. Haxorus's armor contributes to its commanding aura. Thick plating covers its chest and limbs, resembling overlapping scales forged from polished stone. The deep yellow-green body contrasts with the dark armor, while crimson highlights glow around joints and tusk bases like embers hidden beneath rock. When Haxorus stands motionless, it resembles a statue, carved, ancient, immovable. Only when it moves does its power truly reveal itself. Each step heavy yet controlled, each swing of its tusks deliberate rather than wasteful. In battle, Haxorus is known for overwhelming physical strength. Moves like Dragon Claw, Dual Chop, and Outrage showcase the raw, sweeping force behind every swing. Its access to Mold Breaker, an ability that ignores defensive abilities of opponents, reinforces its reputation as a dragon that simply cuts through whatever stands in its way. Even defensive strategies often crumble under Haxorus's relentless pressure, making it a Pokemon feared not just for brute force, but for the inevitability it projects. Yet power alone doesn't define it. Haxorus fights with instinctive strategy. It positions itself to control space, angling tusks to limit opponents' movement and forcing rivals into poor footing. When facing experienced enemies, it doesn't rush recklessly. It waits, steps carefully, and strikes only when openings appear, demonstrating battlefield awareness shaped by countless territorial clashes. In certain ecosystems, Haxorus have been observed shaping environments in subtle ways. They clear paths along riverbanks, carve out dens in cliff faces, and cut fallen trees to free waterways. These actions, while primarily territorial, inadvertently benefit other Pokemon, preventing floods and creating habitats for smaller species. Some researchers speculate that over centuries, entire forests may have been indirectly sculpted by generations of Haxorus, maintaining their ranges. Legends in Unova speak of valleys once ruled by great Haxorus clans. These dragons supposedly gathered during rare seasonal events, not to battle, but to display strength and reaffirm boundaries peacefully. Younger Fracture watched silently, while elders etched deep marks into stone pillars, long, jagged scars that remain visible today. The marks acted like agreements etched into nature itself, declaring where each clan would roam while avoiding unnecessary wars. One of the most memorable modern appearances of Haxorus comes from battles that test the resolve of strong trainers. In these encounters, Haxorus often stands as a final challenge, a dragon that doesn't rely on tricks or illusions. When it roars, dust rises from the ground and distant Pokemon fall silent. Its stance communicates everything. This is the line, and crossing it means facing ancient strength honed through discipline. Despite its ferocity, Haxorus forms deep bonds once trust develops. Trainers who earn its loyalty do so not through domination, but through respect, giving it space, acknowledging its instincts, and proving strength of character. Haxorus values honesty in action. It recognizes resolve, resilience, and persistence mirrored in its own behavior. Once that bond solidifies, loyalty runs deep. Stories tell of Haxorus refusing to abandon fallen companions, standing guard long after danger has passed. In terms of habitat, Haxorus favors secluded environments with access to stone and water, areas ideal for sharpening tusks and sustaining life. It often nests near quiet lakes bordered by cliffs. Mist rises over the water in the mornings, and Haxorus emerges from the shadows of rocky alcoves, stretching slowly, testing its tusks against nearby stone before beginning its patrol. The air around such areas feels heavy, not with fear, but with the unmistakable presence of something powerful and watchful. Violence, however, is never its first response. Rival encounters typically begin with posture, head lowered, tusks forward, claws digging slightly into soil. If the intruder retreats, the confrontation ends there. Only when territory is truly threatened does Haxorus unleash its full ferocity, transitioning from stillness to decisive motion in a heartbeat. The battle ends swiftly, leaving clean cuts through bark and rock, physical reminders of why trespassing is unwise. Symbolically, Haxorus represents the concept of earned strength. Nothing about its power appears gifted or divine. Every aspect, from hardened tusks to layered armor, seems shaped by time, persistence, and survival challenges. Compared to majestic dragons associated with prophecy or cosmic energy, Haxorus exists as a creature forged through effort. That makes it a rare blend of myth and realism within the Pokémon world. Its evolutionary path reinforces that idea. Axew's first timid scrapes against stone build toward Fracture's territorial marks, which eventually become Haxorus's mastery of controlled destruction. Growth isn't shown as sudden transformation. It's incremental, carved into the environment, just as the environment carves back into the dragon's tusks. In ancient carvings discovered in Unova, archaeologists have found depictions of dragons resembling Haxorus etched alongside human communities. These carvings do not show dragons burning villages or ruling people. Instead, they appear beside farmlands, rivers, and guarded borders, as if Haxorus were silent sentinels ensuring that predators did not overrun early settlements. While impossible to verify completely, the idea aligns strongly with how Haxorus behaves even now, protector rather than conqueror. Haxorus's roar is another defining trait. Unlike dragons whose cries echo with mystical tones, Haxorus produces a deep, resonant bellow that vibrates through the ground. It uses this roar to communicate across long distances, warning rivals, calling to its group, or announcing territorial presence after a storm. During foggy mornings, the sound rolls across valleys like a low drumbeat, lingering in the air long after the dragon itself has vanished from sight. Weather affects Haxorus differently than it does other dragons. Rain slicks its armor, but doesn't slow it. Snow gathers between armor plates, quickly brushed away by movement. In extreme heat, Haxorus bathes in lakes to cool itself before resuming patrol. Its lifestyle revolves around adaptation rather than retreat. Rarely does it seek caves for long-term shelter unless sickness or serious injury forces respite. Even injured, Haxorus demonstrates extraordinary resilience. It cleans wounds using river water and rubs them against abrasive stone to remove infection. Over time, scars form, pale lines across scales and plates. These scars function like a living record, each one marking a confrontation survived and lesson learned. In some territories, elders with many scars receive deference from younger dragons, not because of dominance, but because of experience. In battle strategy across competitive formats, Haxorus embodies straightforward but dangerous momentum. Dragon Dance boosts its speed and strength, turning it into a relentless force capable of sweeping teams. Swords Dance amplifies its raw cutting capability to an almost unstoppable degree. Once Haxorus gains momentum, stopping it becomes increasingly difficult, mirroring its real-world behavior, where backing down is rarely an option once conflict begins. Yet, for all its might, Haxorus also understands retreat, not fleeing in fear, but withdrawing strategically when battles risk causing unnecessary destruction. Observers have recorded Haxorus choosing to move confrontations away from nesting grounds, luring opponents toward open fields where collateral damage is minimized. This awareness suggests intelligence deeper than brute instinct, a capacity to prioritize survival of the environment alongside victory. Culturally, some communities view Haxorus as a symbol of guardianship or adulthood. Warriors carve miniature tusk-shaped charms to represent perseverance. Farmers place stone markers etched with tusk patterns near field edges, invoking protection from wild threats. These traditions continue not because people worship dragons, but because they acknowledge the role Haxorus plays within local ecosystems, a deterrent against chaos. One of the rarest phenomena involving Haxorus is the formation of long-standing truce zones. In certain valleys, multiple dragons have been observed sharing neutral territory around a particularly abundant water source. Within these zones, battles cease. Haxorus from different regions drink, sharpen, and leave without conflict. Researchers believe that an ancestral understanding governs these peaceful spaces, recognition that survival sometimes requires cooperation rather than dominance. As evening approaches in regions where Haxorus lives, forests grow quiet, the dragon patrols slower, shadows lengthen, and insects hum in rising choruses. Haxorus stops occasionally, lifting its head as wind shifts, always alert. When darkness deepens, it returns to a vantage point overlooking its lake or lowlands, tusks faintly reflecting moonlight. From there, it watches until movement becomes scarce and the world settles. Its existence feels timeless, like an echo of ancient eras where massive reptiles shaped landscapes and survival meant constant vigilance. Yet Haxorus remains fully part of the present world, living, adapting, and influencing everything around it with every careful step. Garchomp is a dragon type shaped by motion, a creature built not for towering drama, but for relentless speed and predatory precision. Where some dragons command the skies like mythical rulers, Garchomp moves like a living weapon, fine-tuned by its environment. With its aerodynamic body, scythe-like arms, and jagged fins slicing through air like shark fins through water, Garchomp looks as if it was engineered by nature solely to chase, strike, and disappear before its presence is fully realized. Its evolutionary line begins with Gible, a stout dragon that burrows into tunnels near rocky deserts and mountain caverns. Gible gnaw at stone and spend much of their childhood hidden underground, venturing out cautiously to hunt smaller prey. Over time, as they grow into Gabit, their bodies lengthen and sharpen, instincts becoming more aggressive and territorial. Gabit scavenge gemstones, hoard treasures, and develop an obsession with gathering shiny objects, perhaps remnants of early instincts linked to attracting mates or marking territory. When Gabite finally evolves into Garchomp, the transformation feels like the sharpening of a blade. The playful scavenger becomes a high-speed apex predator. Garchomp's wings don't resemble typical wings. Instead, they flatten and angle forward like jet stabilizers. These fins reduce drag and channel wind across its body, making it capable of astonishing bursts of speed. Lore says that when Garchomp locks into the right glide, it can rival the velocity of a jet plane, not through magical lift, but through optimized aerodynamics and raw propulsion. Unlike other dragons who fly through continuous flapping, Garchomp slices through air with minimal movement, conserving energy across vast distances. Its head and jaw structure reinforce this predatory design. The mouth is filled with conical teeth, meant for gripping rather than shredding, secure enough to restrain prey while delivering crushing force. Combined with its thick, muscular tail, Garchomp can strike in swift, circular motions, sweeping both ground and air in a fluid arc. The slightest twitch from its shoulders signals violent acceleration, turning open fields into hunting grounds where few Pokémon can hope to outrun it. In nature, Garchomp prefers desolate environments, arid plateaus, dusty mountain ranges, and wide expanses where visibility is high. These open landscapes allow maximum speed with minimal obstacles. Garchomp carve out dens within cliff walls, creating tunnel systems that descend deep into stone. These dens serve both as shelter and as ambush points. When prey approaches, Garchomp erupts from the ground in a burst of dirt and rock, striking with startling precision before retreating again into silence. Despite its ruthless efficiency, Garchomp is not wild chaos. It displays territorial order similar to other apex predators. Boundaries are marked through deep grooves, carved into stone with its scythe-like arms. The marks warn intruders, rival dragons, ground predators, or unwary explorers that the land is claimed. Most creatures heed the signs and keep their distance. Those that ignore them quickly discover why Garchomp rarely needs to roar to assert dominance. Garchomp's reputation intensified through Sinnoh folklore. Stories circulate of travelers journeying across desert plains who glimpsed something moving in the distance, a blur that vanished almost instantly. When caravans were attacked long ago, eyewitnesses described shadows that darted across the sand faster than thought, striking like a mirage. Villagers began to refer to Garchomp as the Sandstorm Dragon, believing it rode storms and guided them like loyal spirits. In truth, Garchomp often chased prey during storms, using low visibility to its advantage. Its competitive battle role mirrors this relentless style. Garchomp is known for exceptional attack power combined with deceptive speed and durability. Moves like Earthquake and Dragon Claw form its core arsenal, direct, heavy, and devastating. Access to Sword's Dance turns it from a threat into a catastrophe once momentum builds. Rough Skin, one of its signature abilities, punishes physical contact, reflecting how its jagged scales cut anything careless enough to get close. Every detail reinforces the theme. Engaging Garchomp recklessly always carries a price. Mega Evolution amplifies this concept further. Mega Garchomp becomes heavier, its blades thickening into brutal, serrated edges. Speed slightly decreases, but power surges dramatically. Instead of sleek precision, Mega Garchomp represents overwhelming force, a dragon choosing raw destruction over finesse. The transformation seems almost symbolic, revealing the ferocity buried beneath its more aerodynamic natural state. Even so, Garchomp exhibits loyalty and structured behavior when bonded with a trainer. It respects leadership styles that show decisiveness and clarity. Trainers who hesitate confuse it. Those who act with certainty earn unwavering commitment. Garchomp recognizes strength not as cruelty, but as consistency, a mirror of its instinctive lifestyle, where survival depends on sharp choices and swift reactions. Garchomp also possesses a surprising sense of patience. Outside of hunts and battles, it spends long periods resting at the mouths of dens, head lifted slightly, fins catching shifting air currents. Its breathing remains steady while it watches the horizon, analyzing movement patterns of nearby Pokémon and weather shifts. When night falls, its eyes reflect faint moonlight, and its silhouette blends into the jagged rocks around it, a silent predator waiting for necessity rather than chasing conflict without reason. Environmental impact around Garchomp territory reveals subtle balance. By controlling populations of large land mammals and aggressive predators, it prevents ecosystems from collapsing under overgrazing or unchecked hunting. Smaller Pokémon learn to listen for the faint scraping of claws on stone, a signal to scatter. Over years, migration routes shift around territories where Garchomp maintain dominance, resulting in natural order without excessive destruction. Biologists in the Pokémon world note that where Garchomp vanish, chaos often follows as rival predators compete without restraint. Garchomp's roar carries across plains like rolling thunder. It is deep and controlled, less of a scream and more of a vibration that resonates through stone. Rather than warning constantly, Garchomp reserves the sound for specific moments, claiming territory, signaling the presence of rivals, or communicating across long distances during hunts. Packs of Garchomp are rare, but small family groups sometimes coordinate their roars to establish wide territorial nets. These families display cooperative hunting behavior, dividing and isolating prey before closing in simultaneously. In art and relics discovered in Sinnoh ruins, dragons resembling Garchomp appear alongside depictions of warriors and desert travelers. The drawings do not show conquest. Instead, they depict coexistence, dragons watching from cliffs while humans journey below. Scholars debate whether ancient people domesticated Garchomp or simply understood how to avoid provoking them. Regardless, the imagery highlights respect rather than fear-driven mythology. Training Garchomp requires both responsibility and skill. Young Gibble tend to bite impulsively and charge at obstacles without awareness, believing stubborn strength solves everything. As they grow, structured guidance teaches restraint. By the time they reach full evolution, mature Garchomp channel their aggression as focused force. They respond well to drills that emphasize precision. Timed sprints, target slices, and obstacle weaving. Their minds thrive on challenge and routine, much like competitive athletes driven by constant refinement. Weather influences Garchomp's mood in noticeable ways. Hot, dry climates invigorate it, increasing movement and patrol cycles. Cold slows it slightly but doesn't incapacitate. During heavy storms, it often hunts actively, using thunder and swirling sand to mask its presence. After storms pass, Garchomp surveys territory, repairing dens by reinforcing entrances with slabs of rock and clearing debris that could impede future movement. Despite its intimidating form, Garchomp shows protective instincts toward those it accepts into their territory. Smaller Pokémon that live peacefully nearby may find shelter under its watch. Predators that overstep are swiftly discouraged. Observers have recorded Garchomp standing guard over injured companions, refusing to leave even when food becomes scarce. Loyalty among these dragons runs deep, extending beyond individual survival. Symbolically, Garchomp embodies momentum. Once set into motion, events unfold rapidly around it. Its presence suggests inevitability, the sense that conflict with it must be handled decisively or not at all. There is no half measure when confronting something designed so completely for speed and impact. Yet beneath this intensity lies a creature deeply aligned with its ecosystem, free from malice, acting only within cycles that have shaped it from the beginning. The sheer efficiency of Garchomp inspires awe, whether gliding just above ground with wings tucked close, bursting through sand in a blur, or unleashing a sudden earthquake that ripples across terrain. Its actions always appear calculated. It wastes nothing, not energy, not motion, not opportunity. That precision defines it far more clearly than its fangs or claws. As night stretches over desert landscapes, stars emerge above Garchomp's territory. The dragon remains a silent silhouette against the horizon, fins raised slightly toward faint wind currents. Then, without warning, it moves, a blur racing across distance, vanishing behind rock formations before reappearing higher along a ridge. The speed seems unreal, almost unnatural, yet perfectly aligned with its design. In that fleeting moment, the dragon becomes the landscape itself, a force woven into the geography of dunes and stone. And so Garchomp persists across regions where harsh winds carve cliffs and sand whispers endlessly across the ground. Not as a tyrant, not as a mythical deity, but as an apex predator of breathtaking precision, shaped by environments unforgiving enough to demand its existence. Wherever open plains stretch toward distant horizons, faintly carved stone and distant, thunder-like roars often hint at the presence of a dragon whose power lies not only in strength, but in the unstoppable momentum of nature perfected. Salamence is the embodiment of a dream that refused to fade. Unlike many dragons born with the natural ability to fly, Salamence comes from a lineage that longed for the sky but was never meant to reach it. Its earliest stage, Bagon, spends its life staring upward from cliffs and rocky outcrops, watching clouds drift past like distant promises. That longing shapes everything about the species. Bagons repeatedly hurl themselves off ledges in determined, stubborn attempts to take flight, not out of recklessness, but out of instinctive desire. They crash, get back up, and leap again, gradually strengthening their bodies through endless trials. This repeated impact hardens their skulls into one of the toughest natural armors in the Pokémon world. What appears as thick, blunt cranial plating is actually the record of countless attempts to defy gravity. Over time, that resilience evolves into Shelgon, an intermediate form sealed inside a protective shell. During this phase, motion slows dramatically. Energy gathers, muscles develop, structures form quietly beneath armor. Shelgon endures patient stillness while its body reshapes, storing potential like a compressed storm waiting for release. When Shelgon finally evolves into Salamence, the transformation feels nothing short of explosive. Massive blood-red wings tear free from the shell, unfurling with a force that seems to echo generations of longing. For the first time, the dragon rises into the air, not awkwardly, but with raw, exuberant power. Salamence doesn't simply fly, it revels in flight. Legends describe newly evolved Salamence soaring in wide, ecstatic arcs, roaring triumphantly across valleys, as if announcing that a long-denied wish had finally been granted. Its design reflects this shift from grounded frustration to aerial sovereignty. Salamence's streamlined body, powerful hind legs, and sweeping wings suggest constant readiness for takeoff. Its jawline curves into a formidable shape capable of crushing rock, and its gaze carries a fierce intensity, not born of cruelty, but of a spirit accustomed to struggle. When Salamence glides across skies at dusk, its silhouette resembles classic depictions of dragons from ancient myths. Wings wide, body tense, power controlled but unmistakably present. Despite its reputation for ferocity, Salamence is not purely destructive. It is driven by instinct, pride, and emotional intensity. When threatened or provoked, it unleashes formidable power, dragon-type energy erupting into attacks like Dragon Claw, Dragon Pulse, and Draco Meteor. But outside of conflict, Salamence often displays surprising calm. It chooses high perches, mountain ridges, cliff edges, and towering stone spires from which it scans territory with patient vigilance. From such heights, it feels secure, ruling its domain through presence more than action. Still, there are moments where its excitement becomes uncontrollable. Some Pokédex accounts describe Salamence burning fields unintentionally after flying too passionately. These incidents aren't premeditated. They reflect the challenge of balancing newfound power with emotional impulses. Over time, older Salamence learn restraint, developing a regal dignity that replaces the reckless vigor of youth. Their flights become smoother, their roars less impulsive and more declarative, an announcement of dominance rather than unchecked exuberance. Historically, Salamence has appeared in Hoenn folklore as a symbol of unparalleled determination. Stories speak of dragons that once crawled on barren highlands, dreaming of the sky. Through perseverance, they shaped themselves into beings capable of achieving that impossible goal. Travelers encountering Salamence often perceive them as both inspirational and intimidating, proof that desire, when sustained across countless generations, could alter the course of evolution itself. In competitive battles, Salamence thrives as a versatile powerhouse. Offensively, it combines speed and raw force, striking with precision that leaves little room for counterplay. Intimidate, one of its signature abilities, weakens opponents before clashes even begin, reflecting the psychological presence Salamence exerts. Its Mega Evolution further enhances that dominance. Mega Salamence's wings merge into a crescent shape, forming a glider-like blade across its back. In this form, it cuts through air with minimal drag, resembling a living scythe sweeping across the sky. The transformation shifts its demeanor too, more controlled, more disciplined, almost terrifying in how effortlessly it commands aerial space. Salamence rarely travels in large groups. Like many apex dragons, it values territory and solitude. However, it does not isolate entirely. Mated pairs sometimes patrol shared skies, and parent Salamence occasionally circle nesting grounds while young Bagans train below. In these settings, mentorship occurs naturally. Adults demonstrate controlled takeoffs and practice landings. Young observe, imitating motions with determination that echoes the species' ancestral longing. The environments Salamence chooses are harsh but breathtaking. Rugged mountains where storms gather, canyons carved by ancient winds, cliffs that overlook endless forests. These landscapes offer both challenge and freedom. Strong updrafts enable long flights, while remote ledges provide secure resting places beyond reach of most predators. When Salamence rests, wings fold tightly along its back, muscles loosening after long patrols. But one subtle sound, a shifting rock, a predator cry, the flutter of an unfamiliar presence, snaps its attention back instantly. Its roar carries across valleys like rolling thunder. Deep, layered, and commanding, it serves several purposes: asserting territory, locating distant kin, or warning intruders. Hearing that sound firsthand leaves an impression. Birds scatter, ground Pokémon pause. The ecosystem responds instinctively to the presence of an apex aerial guardian. Rarely does anything challenge Salamence directly, unless desperation overrides instinct. Yet Salamence is not without vulnerability. The same pride that fuels its determination can cloud judgment during emotionally charged moments. A Salamence provoked repeatedly or humiliated may respond with disproportionate fury, tearing through obstacles with little concern for surroundings. Trainers and researchers alike emphasize the importance of calm environments and patient guidance when interacting with the species. Respect goes further than force. When trust forms, Salamence becomes fiercely loyal, willing to fly through storms or confront formidable threats without hesitation. The symbolism attached to Salamence extends beyond raw power. It represents aspiration realized, dreams turned tangible. In ancient carvings discovered across Hoenn, dragons resembling Salamence are etched alongside depictions of stars, suggesting a cultural link between skyward ambition and destiny. Scholars believe early civilizations viewed Salamence as proof that perseverance could elevate ordinary life into something extraordinary. Behaviorally, Salamence shows surprising curiosity. Between patrol cycles, some have been observed drifting slowly above unfamiliar territories, watching migrations, weather patterns, and seasonal changes. This observational nature hints at intelligence not rooted purely in survival. Salamence seems to learn from its environment, adapting flight patterns to different winds, memorizing updrafts, and even returning to favorite air currents year after year. During storms, Salamence showcases resilience. Strong gales that would ground lesser flyers become challenges to overcome. It tilts wings, adjusts trajectory, and rides turbulent pockets with impressive stability. Lightning flashes illuminate the dragon mid-flight, revealing the determined set of its eyes and the confident curve of its wings. When the storm finally breaks, Salamence continues gliding across clearing skies as though it has outlasted the chaos through endurance and mastery rather than avoidance. For trainers who manage to bond with Salamence, the relationship is profound. Training focuses on discipline, emotional regulation, and directional control. Salamence thrives on routine drills, timed flights, target tracking, sudden altitude shifts. It enjoys challenges that refine skill rather than reckless displays of strength. Over time, mutual understanding forms. Salamence recognizes guidance not as limitation, but as collaboration, a shared effort to channel immense power responsibly. In ecosystems, Salamence holds ecological importance. By controlling airborne predators and large terrestrial threats, it maintains balance across territories. Prey populations remain regulated, reducing damage to vegetation and preventing starvation cycles. Other Pokémon learn to coexist around this rhythm, shaping migration routes and nesting patterns accordingly. In this way, Salamence functions as an invisible architect of harmony across rugged landscapes. Its presence has inspired countless tales among explorers who travel mountains and canyonlands. Some recount glimpsing a blue and red figure sweeping across the horizon, momentarily eclipsing the sun. Others speak of Salamence appearing unexpectedly, scattering aggressive predators before vanishing wordlessly into the clouds. Rare encounters leave behind silence, wind, and the lingering sense that something ancient and powerful still watches from above. Mega Salamence, in particular, has influenced modern research. Its aerodynamic design fascinates engineers in the Pokémon world, who study wing curvature and airflow patterns for inspiration in aircraft development. Trainers who experience flying alongside it describe the sensation as controlled gravity, not a wild rush, but an almost serene glide that masks lethal capability beneath smooth motion. Mega Salamence embodies perfected flight, the culmination of every leap Bagon ever took and every quiet transformation Shelgon endured. Yet even with technological fascination and mythic symbolism, Salamence remains fundamentally natural. It eats, sleeps, patrols, protects, and, when necessary, fights. It experiences frustration, joy, pride, and calm, These grounded qualities anchor its legendary image in realism. Salamence is extraordinary not because it breaks rules of existence, but because it exemplifies them at their most refined. When evening spreads across rugged horizons, Salamence often lands on high peaks where warm winds rise from valley floors. It folds its wings and watches as daylight fades into orange and violet layers. The dragon does not rush away, it simply exists there, a sentinel carved into the skyline. Eventually, darkness deepens, and Salamence lifts off again, wings slicing through cool night air as stars scatter overhead. The ancient longing that drove its ancestors never fully disappears. It lives on inside every Salamence, visible in the determined arch of its wings and the unwavering focus in its eyes. The dream of flight became reality, and reality became guardianship of the very sky it once yearned for. Across mountains, canyons, and endless skies, Salamence continues its silent patrols, not as a myth removed from the world, but as a dragon whose existence tells a story etched in stone, wind, and persistence, a creature that began on rocky ledges with nothing but desire and rose, through time, patience, and relentless will, into one of the most commanding dragons to ever ride the horizon. Latias and Latios exist in a space between myth and presence, dragons that feel both celestial and deeply personal, capable of touching lives quietly without leaving obvious traces behind. Unlike most dragon types that dominate territory through force, these two live by intelligence, empathy, and concealment. They glide through skies like sleek, living jets, bodies aerodynamic and smooth, marked with symbols resembling ancient patterns. Their ability to sense human emotions and project images into minds sets them apart as dragons connected not only to nature, but to perception itself. Latias, often gentler and more cautious, cloaks herself in invisibility when threatened. Her feathers possess reflective qualities that scatter light and create optical illusions, allowing her to disappear into surroundings or mimic environmental structures. Latios, by contrast, tends to be more analytical and protective, moving decisively when danger approaches. Together, they form a balance, instinct paired with reason, compassion coupled with vigilance. Their shared typing of dragon and psychic reinforces this duality. Physically powerful yet mentally aware, they navigate worlds seen and unseen. Their intelligence approaches human levels, and some legends claim they once lived among people, communicating directly through visions rather than spoken language. Both Pokémon can manipulate atmospheric vibrations and mental images, allowing them to share memories, create decoys, and signal warnings without sound. In the wild, Latias and Latios prefer isolated coastal areas, tropical islands, or high-altitude regions far from settlements. They build nests hidden among cliffs or deep within dense foliage, often surrounded by wide blue waters or rolling clouds. These environments offer freedom of flight and safety from intrusion. Though solitary by nature, small family groups sometimes travel together during migrations, forming fleeting flocks of red and blue figures streaking across the horizon like comets. Stories from Hoenn describe them as guardians of peace, intervening quietly when ecosystems fall out of balance, not through direct rule or dominance, but through subtle actions, warning other Pokémon, relocating groups, and deterring threats with sudden displays of speed. Latias and Latios rarely fight unless necessary. When they do, their movements appear precise and fluid, their psychic abilities amplifying dragon-type techniques to create powerful yet elegant forms of defense. Their origin myths differ from region to region. Some cultures say they descended from the sky, emissaries of a greater cosmic force. Others believe they evolved naturally over millennia, shaped by oceans and sky currents until their minds developed alongside their bodies. Archaeological fragments occasionally depict dragon silhouettes resembling them, carved beside waves and cloud motifs, symbols representing unity between sea and sky. These carvings suggest that even ancient civilizations recognized something unusual about creatures that could traverse both mental and physical realms. Latias stands out particularly for her strong emotional intuition. She understands fear not as a weakness, but as a signal, responding with protective stealth rather than confrontation. When strangers approach her territory, she often chooses to hide, observing from above with curious eyes before deciding whether they pose a threat. Latios, meanwhile, evaluates movement patterns, voices, and actions, ready to intervene if intentions turn harmful. Together, they behave less like isolated dragons and more like guardians quietly evaluating the world. Their communication ability allows them to project intricate illusions, sometimes creating full-scale replicas of environments to misdirect enemies. These illusions aren't malicious. They serve as shields, buying time or redirecting danger away from vulnerable places. In some documented encounters, people who interacted with Latias and Latios reported visions of memories not their own, scenes of forests, oceans, storms, and moments of deep peace, as if the dragons were sharing glimpses of how they perceive existence. The movie Pokémon Heroes showcased one of the most intimate portrayals of these dragons. In the city of Alto Mare, inspired by Venice, Latias and Latios lived among canals and bridges, unseen by most residents. They protected the city, not by ruling over it, but by ensuring the Soul Dew, a powerful artifact tied to Latios, remained safe. Their bond symbolized sacrifice and love, demonstrating that strength sometimes expresses itself through protection rather than domination. Latios ultimately gave his life to save Alto Mare, becoming part of the Soul Dew, while Latias remained, a guardian grieving, remembering, and continuing her silent watch. That story added layers of mythic tenderness to their image. Instead of fearsome destroyers, they became symbols of empathy and selflessness, dragons capable of forming deep emotional attachments. Latias especially became known for occasionally approaching kind-hearted individuals, curious about human behavior and fascinated by connections built on trust rather than power. In battle mechanics, Latios typically excels in offensive strategy. His naturally higher special attack allows him to unleash devastating psychic and dragon-type moves such as Draco Meteor, Psychic, and Luster Purge. Latias leans more defensive, sustaining damage while supporting allies through moves like Recover, Wish, and Calm Mind. Even their signature moves reflect personality differences. Luster Purge highlights clarity and vision, while Mist Ball evokes elusive protection and mystery. Their mega evolutions unify their forms further, granting increased psychic potential and aggressive speed, while also solidifying their mysterious design resemblance, almost mirror-like, emphasizing their intertwined existence. Latias and Latios take flight with minimal sound, their smooth wings gliding effortlessly through clouds. When sunlight hits them at certain angles, they cast long, sleek shadows shaped like futuristic aircraft. From above, oceans reflect beneath them, creating illusions of swimming through sky and sea simultaneously. They navigate with incredible accuracy, reading wind patterns and energy currents like maps etched across the atmosphere. This precision allows them to travel vast distances with little fatigue, often crossing entire regions in a single day. Despite their intelligence, the pair remain deeply connected to instinct. Latias reacts quickly to flashes of danger, while Latios evaluates threats with composed certainty. Their partnership forms a seamless dance. One senses, the other decides. Both move. Rarely does one stray far from the other for long. Their bond transcends simple species affiliation. It feels almost familial, driven by loyalty, history, and a shared responsibility that few outside their kind truly understand. Some trainers who have encountered them describe a subtle emotional warmth radiating from Latias and Latios. Not literal heat, more like a presence that eases tension. Being near them feels like stepping into a space where aggression softens and awareness heightens. Perhaps this is tied to their psychic nature, tuned toward emotional states the way other Pokémon tune toward environmental cues. It may also be learned behavior, adaptive survival, based on choosing interaction only when peace is possible. Latias and Latios often stay out of global conflicts unless circumstances threaten natural balance. They observe from afar when legendary battles unfold, engaging only if direct harm threatens their environment or the rare places they call home. Their restraint distinguishes them from dragons driven entirely by dominance or instinct. Instead, they navigate decisions with thoughtfulness, weighing consequences silently before acting. In terms of ecology, their presence shapes local ecosystems in subtle ways. Their flight paths discourage aggressive birds of prey, giving smaller species a chance to thrive. Coastal Pokémon benefit from the dragon's protective influence, as poachers and natural predators avoid areas rumored to be watched by unseen guardians. Over time, such territories gain reputations as sanctuaries, not officially protected, but informally preserved through fear and respect for the mysterious dragons rumored to live there. The emotional narrative tied to Latias and Latios often centers on connection and memory. They rarely forget individuals who show unexpected kindness. This long-term recognition leads to moments where, years after an encounter, one of these dragons might appear again near the same person, silently acknowledging their past before vanishing. These recurring sightings feed legends, suggesting they act as watchers over those they once trusted, though proof remains elusive. In flight under moonlight, their bodies glow faintly, reflecting pale silver light. Seen from the ground, they resemble constellations drifting out of formation, brief, silent shapes against the night sky. During dawn flights, sunlight paints them in streaks of crimson and cobalt, transforming them into living streaks of color racing the rising sun. With every movement, their presence remains elegant, measured, and beautifully controlled. While many dragons represent chaos barely contained, Latias and Latios symbolize harmony carefully maintained. They demonstrate that immense power does not always need to announce itself. Sometimes it hides, observes, and intervenes only when the balance between worlds begins to waver. Their existence invites speculation about how knowledge and empathy shape evolution. If creatures survive not merely through strength, but through awareness and cooperation, Latias and Latios may represent an evolutionary peak built not from dominance, but understanding. Their psychic sensitivity allows them to anticipate danger before violence erupts, choose strategic retreats, and maintain peace through subtle influence rather than fear. Ultimately, Latias and Latios remain elusive figures, dragons glimpsed more often in reflection than reality. They leave behind faint wakes in the clouds, circles in the water near coastal nests, and whispered legends among travelers who swear they saw red and blue shapes watching from afar. Whether appearing in bustling cities disguised through illusions or vanishing into remote skies beyond mountains, they exist both everywhere and nowhere. Their bond, forged through shared instinct, intelligence, and experiences that span generations, represents a quiet form of guardianship. Together, they continue to cross oceans, weave through clouds, and watch silently from vantage points humans rarely reach. Not rulers, not conquerors, but protectors, shaped by empathy and guided by an unspoken promise to preserve the fragile threads connecting land, sea, and sky. And so, Latias and Latios linger as mysterious presences in the Pokémon world, beings who carry stories like currents in the wind, passing unseen through the air while holding the memory of every place they've ever protected, every horizon they've crossed, and every life they quietly guarded from the shadows above. Reshiram is a dragon bound to truth, wrapped in white flames that do not simply burn, they purify, reveal, and transform. Its body resembles a mythical creature carved from ancient marble, with feather-like wings and a tail shaped like an engine or furnace. When that tail ignites, it roars with brilliant light, turning heat into propulsion and surrounding Reshiram in blazing energy that seems to reshape the very air around it. Unlike many dragons that rely on raw savagery, Reshiram embodies a cosmic dignity, as though every movement carries purpose beyond battle. In Unova's legends, Reshiram once formed part of a single, unified dragon. That dragon lived alongside two heroic brothers who worked together to build a great kingdom. They shared ideals, valued harmony, and shaped a civilization guided by balance. Over time, however, their visions diverged. One brother devoted himself to truth, to clarity, honesty, and the unfiltered reality of the world. The other sought ideals, a future shaped by dreams, possibilities, and belief in what could be. The dragon, torn between loyalty to both, split into two beings. Reshiram, aligned with truth, and Zekrom, aligned with ideals. Reshiram's flames reflect this philosophical connection. When Reshiram flies, its tail generates intense heat, powerful enough to alter weather patterns. Flames spiral outward in controlled bursts, never spreading recklessly unless directed. These are not chaotic infernos. They burn with purpose, illuminating lies, forcing hidden motivations into clarity. Legends describe Reshiram appearing during times when deception threatens to distort history. Its presence alone compelling those near it to face reality, whether welcome or not. Its white plumage symbolizes purity, but also weight. Truth, in Reshiram's world, is not always comforting. It is heavy, sometimes painful, yet necessary. This duality appears even in its expression, calm, thoughtful eyes set in a face that carries neither cruelty nor softness. Reshiram simply is, like the natural laws that govern fire, gravity, or time. Reshiram's body structure blends avian grace with powerful draconic form. The wings resemble sweeping feathers, yet operate more like thermal sails, channeling heat currents generated from its tail. When airborne, Reshiram seems to glide rather than flap aggressively, carried by the sheer force of the energy it produces. Its voice is deep and resonant, layered with echoing tones that roll across the sky like distant thunder. Hearing it feels less like a roar and more like a declaration, unmistakable, unavoidable. Historically, kingdoms sought Reshiram's presence not out of conquest, but out of fear of corruption within their own walls. Chronicles speak of rulers who invited Reshiram to stand as witness during times of political turmoil. Its flames, when unleashed around royal chambers or city plazas, symbolized cleansing, not of people, but of falsehood. When truth prevailed, Reshiram departed as quietly as it arrived, leaving only heat shimmering across the horizon. Reshiram's bond with humans differs from many legendary dragons. It does not serve, nor does it dominate. Instead, it aligns itself with individuals whose hearts resonate with truth, those unafraid to confront harsh realities, even when inconvenient. When it chooses a companion, the partnership becomes one of mutual recognition rather than command. The human brings conviction, Reshiram brings unyielding clarity. In Unova's mythology, Reshiram and Zekrom seldom fight without cause. Their conflicts emerge only when truth and ideals fall dangerously out of balance. When this happens, their battles do not simply scar landscapes, they rewrite destinies. Firestorms clash with thunderclouds, scorching earth and splitting skies. Yet beneath the spectacle lies philosophy. Neither dragon exists to destroy the other. Both represent forces required for civilization to survive. Truth grounds ideals. Ideals give truth meaning. Reshiram's signature move, Blue Flare, embodies this perspective. The flames burn azure, hotter than most natural fire, and spiral like living threads around opponents. These flames seem to reject dishonesty instinctively, acting almost sentient. In lore, there are tales of Blue Flare consuming weapons forged through deceit, or crumbling false idols into ash. To Reshiram, deceit is more corrosive than any physical threat. In battle mechanics, Reshiram stands as a formidable special attacker, capable of annihilating steel defenses with its fire-type moves. Turbo Blaze, its unique ability, pierces through abilities that would normally resist or negate attacks, echoing the idea that truth bypasses barriers and excuses. Draco Meteor gives it catastrophic draconic firepower, while Fusion Flare, especially when combined with certain allies, burns with amplified strength, symbolizing unity between opposing forces when cooperation emerges. Reshiram's behavior in nature is strikingly composed. It often roams high altitudes, tracing wind currents above mountaintops and uninhabited plains. Unlike many dragons that hunt frequently, Reshiram sustains itself in ways largely unknown, leading scholars to speculate that it absorbs atmospheric energy. When it lands, it prefers solitary ruins, ancient monuments, or tall stone structures, places heavy with history and memory. It spends long periods gazing outward, unmoving like a sentinel contemplating time. Fire reacts gently around Reshiram when it remains calm. Campfires burn steady, torches steady themselves, embers glow brighter but never erupt. The dragon seems to command heat the way a musician commands instruments, adjusting, refining, rarely wasting energy. But when provoked, the air itself begins to shimmer, long before flames appear, as though reality bends under the pressure of truth, preparing to surface. Philosophers in the Pokémon world discuss Reshiram not as a destroyer, but as a moral force. Its presence in mythology often coincides with moments when lies threaten to rewrite history. Scribes recorded appearances during coups, corrupt trials, and wars waged on false pretenses. In each case, Reshiram revealed what truly happened, sometimes to devastating emotional effect. Yet after exposure, rebuilding could begin honestly. Its relationship with Kyurem adds another dimension. Kyurem is said to be the hollow remnant of the original dragon after splitting. Some legends suggest Reshiram feels a subtle melancholy when near Kyurem, not fear, but remembrance. Truth recognizes what was lost. In rare cases, when circumstances align, Reshiram and Kyurem can fuse, forming White Kyurem. This fusion combines Reshiram's fiery truth with Kyurem's chilling emptiness, creating a being of cold fire, a paradox reflecting how truth can sometimes freeze illusions before burning through them. In architecture, some ancient cities built spires designed to mimic Reshiram's tail structure, symbolizing aspiration toward pure governance. Priests and scholars guarded manuscripts containing ethical philosophies inspired by Reshiram, emphasizing honesty in leadership and self-reflection among citizens. Even in eras where its existence faded into legend, Reshiram remained a cultural anchor, invoked in rituals whenever societies sought clarity. Reshiram's demeanor toward opponents is not vengeful. It attacks only when deception or oppression persist beyond tolerance. When it confronts adversaries, its gaze stays steady, unflinching. It does not roar wildly or thrash. Instead, it acts with focus, delivering decisive strikes that end conflict quickly. The aftermath is often silent, with heat lingering in the air like the echo of a lesson. Its physical grace is undeniable. When Reshiram descends, wings unfold in vast arcs, scattering motes of heat that drift like glowing snow. Feathers ripple as though woven from threads of light. As it lands, claws meet ground with quiet authority, not brute impact. Even walking, Reshiram moves as if aware that every step carries symbolic weight. Certain accounts describe children and Pokémon approaching Reshiram without fear during peaceful moments, drawn to its warmth the way creatures gather near sunlight. These moments reveal another side, guardian-like, patient, gentle. Reshiram lowers its head, allowing smaller Pokémon to bask in its quiet heat. Flames settle into soft luminescence. Truth, in those times, feels less like judgment and more like reassurance. The dragon's eyes often reflect curiosity toward human inventions, cities, machines, systems built to organize life. It seems to study them quietly, perhaps recognizing how easily such structures slip into illusion if not anchored by honesty. Scholars believe Reshiram views civilization not as opponent or partner, but as a phenomenon constantly drifting between reality and self-deception. In sky battles against Zekrom, their contrasting energies create breathtaking phenomena. Lightning towers pierce the clouds, while pillars of blue fire spiral upward. The turbulence they generate shifts air pressure dramatically, forming shockwaves that ripple for miles. Observers describe these clashes as awe-inspiring rather than terrifying, displays of cosmic discussion more than violence, each dragon asserting its truth or ideal in brilliant arcs of elemental force. Symbolically, Reshiram represents acceptance of what is, flaws, histories, consequences, without erosion by fantasy. It does not crush dreams. Rather, it insists that dreams stand on honest foundations. Where truth vanishes, Reshiram's mythology warns, collapse eventually follows. Travelers throughout Unova sometimes claim to spot Reshiram at dawn, soaring along the edge of sunrise. In those fleeting glimpses, the dragon appears etched in gold and white, tail blazing as it disappears beyond distant hills. Farmers interpret such sightings as omens of clarity coming to their communities. Historians document them as rare validations of legends continuing into the present day. In quieter ages, Reshiram retreats to remote sanctuaries, volcano ridges, abandoned castles overtaken by vines, or mountaintop ruins, all become resting places. There it remains, near sources of heat and wind, as if listening for shifts in the world below. It waits not passively, but attentively, sensing when truth begins to fade under layers of falsehood. Its legacy threads through songs, murals, and old manuscripts. Many portray Reshiram not mid-battle, but in contemplative poses, perched above cities, wings half unfurled, flames dormant but ready. These depictions suggest cultural reverence for restraint, power held back, fire controlled, truth reserved for moments when it is needed most. Reshiram's existence reminds the Pokémon world that truth is not a weapon to wield selfishly. It is a light requiring responsibility. Those who stand beside Reshiram must accept the cost of honesty, the stripping away of comforting illusions. Yet, in exchange, they gain a companion whose loyalty runs as deep as ancient stone, whose flames burn only when purpose demands. In the vast skies above Unova, Reshiram continues its quiet path. White wings slice air warmed by the furnace of its tail. Clouds scatter around it, glowing faintly as heat refracts sunlight. Below, civilizations rise and falter. Promises are made and broken, histories written and rewritten. Above all of it, Reshiram endures, a dragon of truth, bound not by time or territory, but by the eternal task of making sure the world remembers what truly lies beneath its stories. Zekrom is a dragon forged from thunder, wrapped in storm clouds, and driven by ideals that shape the future rather than simply reflect the present. Where Reshiram burns with white flames of truth, Zekrom crackles with black lightning, energy that hums with potential and possibility. Its body looks mechanical yet alive, constructed from dark plates resembling armor fused with ancient stone. Every part of Zekrom feels charged, as if it were a living generator whose purpose goes far beyond battle. Legend says that long ago, Zekrom and Reshiram were once a single dragon, united in harmony, while two brothers built a great kingdom. When their philosophies diverged, the dragon split, Reshiram embodying truth, and Zekrom embodying ideals. Ideals represent imagined futures, the belief that the world can transform into something better through vision and conviction. Because of this, Zekrom's energy doesn't simply destroy. It empowers, electrifying dreams and fueling movements that push civilizations forward. The immense generator-like structure inside its tail, called the dynamo coil, rotates when Zekrom channels electricity. As it spins, clouds gather, air pressure shifts, and storms respond as though called by an ancient pact between sky and dragon. Zekrom's lightning is not the wild chaos of natural thunder alone. It is focused, guided by will. During flight, arcs of blue-white electricity streak along its wings and limbs, buzzing like distant wires. When Zekrom lands, static dances across the ground, causing small stones and dust to tremble before settling again. Zekrom often appears in stories during times of social upheaval or revolutionary change. Leaders driven by genuine ideals, whether to free oppressed people, protect endangered lands, or reshape unjust systems, sometimes feel drawn to its legend. Not all who pursue it succeed. Zekrom chooses companions carefully, seeking those whose convictions remain unshakable even when challenged. The bond it forms is never one-sided. Just as it empowers ideals, it also tests them, forcing individuals to confront whether their vision truly benefits others or merely serves their own ambition. Unlike many dragons that prefer isolation, Zekrom's mythological presence feels communal. Thunderheads that roll over entire regions resemble silent messengers, hinting that Zekrom is near, observing, evaluating, deciding whether the era deserves intervention. Farmers and travelers have recorded seeing dark silhouettes streaking across storm clouds, lightning crackling behind like a comet's tail. The sight evokes awe rather than fear, as if Zekrom flies not in anger, but in contemplation of the world below. In Unova's lore, when Reshiram and Zekrom clash, they do so not as enemies, but as philosophies intersecting. Zekrom's thunder shakes the sky, while Reshiram's flames burn through illusion. Each tests the other. Ideals without truth become delusion. Truth without ideals stagnates. Their conflicts restore balance, even if the process scorches landscapes and splits skies in the process. To the people witnessing such confrontations, the dragons feel like forces of history itself, necessary, overwhelming, and beyond simple control. Physically, Zekrom moves with immense weight and hidden agility. Its wings resemble turbine blades rather than feathers, and their heavy mechanical structure suggests that its flight is powered as much by internal energy as by air currents. The dragon hovers at times, suspended by electromagnetic fields that ripple faintly beneath its feet. When it roars, its voice rumbles like thunder rolling across stone canyons, low, resonant, and vibrating deep in the chest of anyone who hears it. Its signature move, Bolt Strike, embodies devastating precision. Electricity concentrates into a spear-like surge, then explodes outward the instant Zekrom connects. Fusion Bolt becomes even stronger when paired with opposing energies, hinting at the dragon's nature as a being who thrives not in isolation, but in interplay, especially with Reshiram's fusion flare. Its ability, Terravolt, allows Zekrom to pierce through defensive abilities that normally block or weaken attacks, symbolizing ideals strong enough to cut through systems designed to suppress them. Despite its destructive reputation, Zekrom is not reckless. It seldom unleashes full power without cause. Researchers speculate that it senses the fragility of human structures and chooses restraint whenever possible. When Zekrom travels, it often flies above clouds, creating long streaks of darkness that occasionally flash with electric veins. Below, rain follows, crops drink, rivers swell. To some communities, storms tied to Zekrom symbolize renewal, uncomfortable, sometimes dangerous, yet ultimately necessary for continued life. Zekrom's connection with Kyurem mirrors its tie to Reshiram. As another fragment of the original dragon, Kyurem represents the void, a husk left behind. When Zekrom fuses with Kyurem, they become Black Kyurem, embodying ideals encased in cold pragmatism. This fusion shows how visions of the future can turn rigid when stripped of warmth, becoming imposing and unyielding. Yet even in this form, purpose persists. Direction without compromise, power shaped into precise, freezing strikes. Ancient murals discovered in Unova depict Zekrom surrounded by human figures raising tools, flags, and torches. These images suggest that earlier civilizations associated Zekrom not with kings or aristocrats, but with common people striving for change. Priests and scholars debated what it meant that such a powerful dragon aligned itself with ideals rather than institutions. Many concluded that Zekrom favors potential over structure, movements over monuments. In ecosystems, Zekrom exists outside ordinary food chains. It does not hunt in the typical sense. Instead, it seems to draw energy from atmospheric electricity, storm currents, and geothermal pockets. When storms intensify across vast plains, Zekrom often appears briefly, observed hovering silently as if recharging before vanishing into the clouds. Birds respond by flying lower. Ground Pokémon retreat to shelter. The entire environment adapts when the dragon enters, demonstrating invisible influence over wilderness patterns. The dragon's temperament reveals boldness mixed with introspection. Zekrom is direct. It acts decisively, speaks seldom, and values action aligned with belief. But it also reflects internally, sometimes lingering near ruins or mountains long after battles end. Observers have reported seeing Zekrom standing motionless during calm weather, thunder absent, as though contemplating whether the ideals it once supported led to outcomes worthy of the struggle. When aligned with a heroic figure in Unova's mythology, Zekrom helped inspire revolutions rooted in justice rather than domination. But legends also warn that those who wield ideals selfishly may twist Zekram's power into something oppressive. Ideals without empathy can become rigid dogma. Zekrom, sensing imbalance, will eventually withdraw, leaving those leaders without its support as societies realign on their own. In competitive contexts, Zekrom functions as a mixture of brute power and strategic versatility. Its electric, dragon typing gives it unusual offensive coverage. Thunder, Volt Switch, Outrage, and Dragon Claw allow tactical variety, while its physical strength lets it break even heavily fortified defenses. Trainers who use Zekrom effectively understand pacing, unleashing massive strikes at pivotal moments while conserving endurance for the long arc of battle. Symbolically, Zekrom stands at the core of narratives about hope. Ideals begin with dissatisfaction with the present. They imagine a different world, then chase it despite obstacles. Zekrom embodies the electricity of that pursuit, the surge of energy that drives people to build cities, invent technologies, challenge injustice, and explore unknown frontiers. Where Reshiram asks, "What is real?" Zekrom asks, "What could become real?" Storm imagery follows Zekrom constantly. Clouds gather around mountaintops as if being drawn upward by magnetism. Thunderheads roll across plains, casting shadows miles wide. In the center of such storms, if one were somehow fortunate enough to see clearly, Zekrom might be visible. Wings extended, lightning wrapping its body, tail generators spinning with muted luminescence. The storm does not control the dragon. The dragon shapes the storm. Culturally, artists represent Zekrom using strong angular shapes and dark tones, emphasizing power, momentum, and determination. Statues carved in its honor often face forward, one claw extended, symbolizing movement into the future. Temples associated with ideals sometimes include storm motifs, spirals carved into walls, jagged patterns representing lightning, visual languages echoing Zekrom's energy. Yet for all its grandeur, Zekrom remains profoundly aware of fragility. Ideals can shatter as easily as glass when threatened by fear or corruption. Zekrom sees this happen repeatedly across ages. That awareness gives its presence a somber edge. It supports, but it also warns. Change must remain grounded in compassion or risk turning destructive. In moments of peace, Zekrom sometimes disappears entirely from human memory for decades. Scholars debate where it goes during these intervals. Some suggest distant, uncharted storm belts far beyond regional maps. Others imagine undiscovered mountain caverns resonating with magnetism, echoing with constant thunder. Wherever it retreats, one truth remains. Zekrom returns only when the world's ideals burn hot enough to need its roar again. The calm after storms holds particular significance in its mythology. Once lightning fades and clouds part, landscapes appear washed clean, rivers run clearer, air smells renewed. Farmers assess damage, rebuild fences, and plant again. Zekrom's association with these cycles reinforces its theme. Upheaval leads to growth when guided by honest vision. Reshiram and Zekrom share a relationship built not on rivalry, but complementarity. When they meet without conflict, they fly in parallel arcs, white flames and black lightning tracing patterns high above Unova. Observers interpret such rare scenes as signs that truth and ideals have temporarily aligned, allowing civilizations below to flourish without deep internal conflict. During these tranquil eras, myths say the land itself feels steadier, storms fewer, and progress more thoughtful. In architecture across regions influenced by their legends, twin towers often symbolize the dragons. One tower gleaming white, representing truth, the other dark and stoic, representing ideals. These structures remind communities that power must balance both forces or risk collapse. Schools, courts, and libraries sometimes echo similar dual symbolism, integrating storm motifs and flame motifs side by side. Ultimately, Zekrom is less a destroyer than a catalyst. Its presence marks turning points in history, moments where societies either step forward courageously or fracture under the weight of unfulfilled promises. It represents belief sharpened into motion, the electricity running through great movements and quiet acts of defiance alike. High above rolling thunderheads, Zekrom continues to travel, tail generator churning silently as lightning traces glowing veins across its body. It watches continents shift, cultures change, and generations rise with new visions of what the world might become. Whenever ideals crystallize strongly enough to shake foundations, the horizon darkens, the sky hums, and the ancient dragon of storms takes flight once more, not to claim thrones, but to test convictions and illuminate paths toward possible futures. Baxcalibur is a dragon type, shaped by ice and endurance, a creature born in frozen landscapes where survival demands patience, strength, and resilience against relentless cold. Its presence evokes images of ancient reptilian titans that once roamed glacial plains, massive bodies adapted not to roar constantly, but to outlast everything around them. Baxcalibur stands tall, imposing, and strangely regal, with a jagged dorsal ridge that resembles a blade of ice running down its back. That ridge is not merely decoration, it is central to how the dragon channels power. Its evolutionary line begins with Frigibax, a small, reptilian Pokémon that burrows into snowbanks and icy caverns to conserve heat. Frigibax carry fragments of frozen minerals embedded within their scales, natural insulation that reflects cold outward while trapping warmth inside. These tiny dragons learn early that survival is not about speed, but efficiency. They move sparingly, hunt deliberately, and rely on camouflage to avoid predators. As Frigibax evolves into Arctibax, its body lengthens and the dorsal blade begins to form, gaining structure and thickness like a sword being forged in slow motion. When evolution finally produces Baxcalibur, the transformation feels like the completion of an ancient weapon shaped by nature rather than crafted by hands. Baxcalibur's defining feature is its ability to supercool the icy fin on its back, then thrust its head forward to launch streams of freezing energy like a living, cold-breathing cannon. Unlike traditional dragons that exhale fire, Baxcalibur exhales frost so intense it crystallizes air particles mid-flight, creating shimmering trails of frozen vapor. In battle, the temperature around it can drop abruptly, frost creeping over rocks and ground before opponents even strike. The contrast is striking. A towering dragon, associated not with fiery rage, but with glacial certainty. Its ice-type identity brings qualities rarely seen among dragons. Rather than rely solely on overwhelming speed, Baxcalibur specializes in controlled aggression. It absorbs damage, advances step by step, and delivers devastating blows once positioned correctly. The dorsal blade serves multiple purposes, acting as both thermal regulator and offensive weapon. When Baxcalibur leans forward, the blade aligns like a lance, letting it ram through obstacles with crushing force. Frozen shards splinter outward, echoing the sound of glaciers cracking during thaw cycles. In nature, Baxcalibur prefers mountainous tundra, frozen lakes, and snowy forests where silence dominates. These environments strip away distraction. Wind whistles across jagged peaks, ice fractures with distant echoes. Baxcalibur blends into this world with quiet authority. It patrols ridgelines, watching for threats or prey, eyes narrowed against blowing snow. Despite its bulk, it navigates treacherous slopes with surprising balance, claws digging into ice while tail movements redistribute weight. The dragon's temperament reflects the environment that shapes it. Stoic, disciplined, and unyielding, Baxcalibur is not quick to anger. It observes longer than most predators, studying movement patterns before committing to action. When conflict becomes unavoidable, the shift is sudden, a surge of freezing power, a forward lunge, a decisive strike. Then it returns to stillness, conserving energy for the next necessity. This rhythm mirrors the nature of winter itself, long stretches of calm punctuated by brief, overwhelming storms. In Paldea's lore, Baxcalibur appears in stories as a guardian of frozen regions, warding off intruders who threaten fragile ecosystems. Hunters speak of following tracks in the snow only to find them disappear abruptly, as if the dragon leapt across impossible distances. Others tell of nights when auroras shimmer overhead and a massive silhouette stands motionless on a lake's frozen surface, steam rising faintly from its nostrils, watching quietly as the sky glows green and violet. Baxcalibur's physiology fascinates researchers. Beneath its thick scales lies a network of vessels capable of rapidly circulating supercooled fluids. This system prevents internal freezing and likely contributes to its incredible tolerance for sub-zero environments. Its heartbeat remains slow and steady, even during combat, a biological adaptation that reduces oxygen demand and preserves stamina. Where other dragons burn energy quickly, Baxcalibur endures, like a glacier patiently carving mountains over centuries. Its signature ability and moveset reinforce that power through stillness identity. Glaive Rush exemplifies reckless commitment, blended with overwhelming force. The dragon charges forward with all defenses dropped, accepting incoming damage in exchange for nearly unstoppable impact. Icicle Crash, Ice Fang, and Dragon Claw highlight the brutal precision behind every strike. In competitive terms, Baxcalibur combines immense offensive strength with unique defensive resistances thanks to its ice, dragon typing, and abilities like Thermal Exchange, which punishes foes who rely on burning tactics by making Baxcalibur even stronger. Despite the cold environment it inhabits, Baxcalibur is not emotionless. Within family groups, it shows protective instincts. Arctobax gather near a dominant Baxcalibur during storms, relying on its heat retention abilities and imposing presence for safety. When predators approach, Baxcalibur positions itself between the threat and its group, dorsal blade gleaming like frostlit steel. Conflict ends quickly, more often than not. The sheer presence of the dragon is enough to convince rivals to retreat. Culturally, communities living near glacial regions often carve statues inspired by Baxcalibur, tall, angular figures lined with ice patterns, symbolizing perseverance. Winter festivals sometimes feature dances mimicking its slow, deliberate movements, followed by sudden energetic bursts, embodying the balance between stillness and power. Elders tell stories explaining that Baxcalibur teaches survival lessons through example: conserve energy, withstand hardship, and act only when the moment truly matters. Its relationship with water adds another dimension. Baxcalibur often submerges in partially frozen lakes, allowing icy water to flow across its scales. This immersion helps regulate temperature and wash away parasites, but it also connects the dragon to underwater ecosystems. Fish and aquatic Pokémon occasionally gather near its resting form, drawn by faint warmth radiating from beneath the ice. The scene appears paradoxical, a massive ice dragon providing refuge in frozen water, yet it fits perfectly within its ecological role as stabilizer of harsh environments. In battle, Baxcalibur's demeanor remains composed. It analyzes opponents without outward tension, absorbing blows when necessary. Then, when opportunity presents itself, it unleashes staggering power that can shift the entire course of confrontation. Trainers who partner with Baxcalibur often discuss the need to respect pacing. Forcing aggression too early wastes its endurance. Guiding it patiently, however, results in a dragon that ends battles decisively and with minimal unnecessary motion. Legends claim that ancient civilizations feared angering Baxcalibur not because of destruction, but because of the cold that followed its wrath. Stories describe entire valleys freezing during conflicts, rivers locking solid in hours, and forests bending beneath heavy frost. Whether exaggerated or rooted in truth, such tales emphasize how deeply Baxcalibur influences climate around it when fully roused. Yet alongside this intimidating mythology lies a quieter narrative, one of companionship with those who share deep respect for nature's endurance. Hunters lost in winter storms recount moments when a colossal shape walked beside them at a distance, guiding silently until shelter appeared, then vanishing into the snow. These accounts lack proof, but they persist through generations, carried as reminders that even unforgiving creatures can sometimes act as unexpected guardians. Baxcalibur's rivalry with other dragons varies. Against fiery species, its thermal exchange ability turns disadvantage into strength. Against aerial dragons, its heavy grounded stance allows it to anchor itself and strike upward with dramatic force. It does not chase conflict, yet it refuses to yield once challenged. The mix of patient restraint and unstoppable finishing power makes it one of Paldea's most formidable dragons. Seasonal cycles play an important role in its behavior. During deep winter, Baxcalibur moves less, conserving energy while monitoring territory. In late winter and early spring, it becomes more active, clearing snow from den entrances or breaking ice to create freshwater access for nearby Pokémon. These activities support surrounding ecosystems, allowing life to survive long enough for thaw to return. In this way, Baxcalibur functions as both predator and environmental engineer. Mega evolution does not exist for Baxcalibur, but its identity does not require embellishment. Its normal form already feels ancient and complete, as though carved from a glacier that has known countless ages. Modern scientists continue to study its ancestry, speculating connections to extinct Ice Age dragons. Fossils bearing similar dorsal blade structures suggest Baxcalibur represents a surviving lineage, the last echo of prehistoric dragons that dominated frozen continents long before recorded history. When snowstorms rage, Baxcalibur sometimes stands motionless atop ridges, letting wind whip past as sheets of white obscure everything. Lightning may flash over distant mountains, illuminating its silhouette, a towering, unmoved figure casting a long shadow across snow. This steadfastness has become symbolic in regional art and literature. The dragon that endures every storm, unchanged, unbroken. Its roar differs distinctly from others in its class. Rather than a deafening bellow, Baxcalibur's cry sounds deep and resonant, like ice cracking beneath heavy weight. The sound travels through snowpacks and echoes across frozen lakes, warning intruders that a titan watches. At night, the cry blends with howling winds, creating haunting harmonies across tundra regions, a reminder of the dragon's hidden presence. Ultimately, Baxcalibur represents power shaped by restraint. It does not dominate the world through constant force. Instead, it embodies patience and certainty, waiting for decisive moments before unleashing glacial strength. It thrives where conditions are harshest, proving that life can flourish even in landscapes ruled by ice. Its story is not about flashy displays or endless flight, but about standing firm when everything else yields. Across Paldea's frozen peaks, on windswept ridges and silent lakes, Baxcalibur continues its quiet guardianship. Snow gathers along its scales, frost forms on its dorsal blade, breath freezes in the air for a moment before vanishing, and the dragon remains, immovable, enduring, a monument to survival shaped by winter itself, carrying the ancient echo of a world where ice built giants and perseverance wrote the laws of existence. Altaria is a dragon of softness and song, a creature that seems almost out of place among dragons known for jagged scales, powerful roars, and harsh territory disputes. Wrapped in clouds that cling to its wings and body like living silk, Altaria glides gently through the sky, leaving drifting wisps of vapor in its wake. Where other dragons cut through air like blades, Altaria floats, dances, and weaves among clouds as if the atmosphere itself welcomes its presence. Its evolutionary path begins with Swablu, a small, cotton-winged Pokémon that spends much of its time cleaning surfaces, perching on branches, and mimicking birds. Swablu's wings resemble tufts of cloud, but they are more than decorative. Their fibrous, lightweight structure traps warm air, allowing the Pokémon to stay aloft longer while conserving energy. Swablu often gathers in flocks that settle onto tree branches so gently that the limbs barely shift beneath their collective weight. These early experiences, perching, listening, observing, shape its calm disposition long before evolution takes place. When Swablu evolves into Altaria, its wings expand dramatically, transforming from small tufts to sweeping cloud-like formations. The change is not merely aesthetic. The feathers act as natural diffusion panels, allowing Altaria to manipulate air pressure around itself. This ability creates smooth currents that carry it across long distances with minimal effort. Watching an Altaria fly feels less like observing a Pokémon and more like witnessing a living cloud take shape, drift, and dissolve again into the horizon. Altaria's most defining trait is its voice. Unlike dragons whose power echoes through fierce roars, Altaria's voice resonates like music, a clear, soothing melody capable of carrying across mountain valleys and open fields. The tone is warm, ethereal, and haunting in its beauty. Many stories tell of travelers stopping suddenly on lonely roads because they hear singing drifting through the sky, only to look up and glimpse an Altaria crossing above them, wings glowing faintly in sunlight. This voice is not simply for communication. It can calm conflict, reassure frightened Pokémon, and create harmony among flocks. In Hoenn traditions, Altaria is associated with peace and emotional healing. Villages near mountain ranges describe nights when a gentle song flowed down from the peaks, easing fears during storms or disasters. Some cultures even believe that hearing Altaria sing brings clarity during times of confusion. Rather than ruling territory through aggression, Altaria shapes environments through serenity, a presence that suggests stability rather than dominance. Despite its gentle image, Altaria remains undeniably a dragon. Beneath the cloud-like exterior lies a body capable of surprising speed and power. Its talons grip tightly when it chooses to land, and its long neck allows swift, precise defensive movements. Altaria's dragon-type identity reveals itself during combat, where moves like Dragon Pulse echo outward in curved waves of energy, shaped almost poetically. Yet even in these moments, Elegance remains central. Altaria's fighting style prioritizes control over spectacle. Mega Evolution shifts that elegance into something ethereal. When Altaria Mega evolves, its cloud plumage expands dramatically, enveloping its body in layers of soft, billowing mist. It gains the fairy type, reflecting its association with emotional strength, harmony, and presence beyond raw force. Its songs grow more resonant, capable of filling entire stadiums or valleys. This evolution does not turn Altaria into a creature of destruction. Instead, it becomes a guardian of delicate balance, stronger but still rooted in peace. In natural habitats, Altaria often nests at high altitudes. Rocky spires, cliff ledges, and floating cloud banks above mountain forests. These environments provide isolation from predators and a vantage point over wide landscapes. Altaria rests with wings wrapped around its body, resembling a drifting puff of cloud clinging to stone. When breezes rise, it takes off without effort, letting currents lift it skyward. Few dragons appear as comfortable in open air. Altaria forms strong social bonds within flocks. These communities communicate through layered songs, melodies that rise and fall in complex patterns. Each flock develops a slightly different song, passed down through generations. Younger Altaria learn by listening, repeating notes until their voices harmonize perfectly with older members. Observers compare these songs to living histories, musical records of migrations, storms, and major events remembered through sound instead of text. When storms gather, Altaria often flies ahead of thick clouds, reading the atmosphere the way sailors read waves. It avoids lightning by sensing static energy in the air and adjusting trajectory accordingly. Sometimes, Altaria guide other Pokémon toward shelter, circling back repeatedly until stragglers understand the warning. The idea of a dragon that shepherds rather than hunts has shaped its mythology as a benevolent sky spirit. The contrast between Altaria and more aggressive dragons has fascinated scholars. While Salamence represents freedom through defiant power and Garchomp through predatory precision, Altaria symbolizes freedom through harmony. Its story is not one of domination, but of coexistence, how a dragon can thrive without ruling or destroying. This idea challenges older myths that frame dragons exclusively as forces of chaos. Altaria becomes proof that power can manifest gently without losing its depth. Its ability, Natural Cure, ties deeply to its lore. When Altaria leaves battle, ailments fade quickly, as though the act of retreating to sky and song restores balance. In mythic interpretations, this reflects emotional recovery, wounds healed by distance, reflection, and time. Moves like Heal Bell reinforce this association, turning Altaria into a supportive presence both in nature and in battle teams. Nevertheless, Altaria is not passive. When its territory or loved ones face real danger, it fights with quiet ferocity. The clouds around its wings tighten into denser forms, acting almost like shock absorbers that allow it to dive and strike with controlled precision. Dragon Dance reflects this transformation, graceful motion turning into sharpened technique. An Altaria forced to defend will do so without hesitation, but it always returns to calm once peace is restored. Historically, Altaria appears in tapestries and murals depicting festivals, weddings, and celebrations. Artists paint it not as a looming presence, but drifting peacefully above gatherings, showering faint, shimmering particles like stardust. Some regions released lanterns at night to attract Altaria during ceremonies, hoping to hear its song as a blessing. These traditions reveal how deeply this dragon's symbolism intertwines with human culture. Ecologically, Altaria plays a curious role. It disperses seeds while traveling long distances, as burrs and tiny plant fragments cling to its cloud-like wings. When those seeds eventually drop across mountains and plains, they help spread vegetation. Altaria indirectly contributes to biodiversity simply by gliding. Meanwhile, its presence discourages more aggressive sky predators, maintaining a balance that allows smaller species to thrive. Altaria's relationship with Swablu flocks remains intimate even after evolution. Adult Altaria sometimes circle above younger groups, guiding migrations or teaching safe flight paths. At dusk, when the sky fades into pink and gold, entire families may glide together, silhouettes flowing like gentle waves across the heavens. The sound of their layered songs, drifting through twilight, becomes an unforgettable natural chorus. The dragon's personality leans toward curiosity as well. Altaria sometimes approaches quiet human settlements, observing from rooftops or tall trees. If residents remain calm and respectful, it may stay longer, studying everyday life from above before moving on. Those lucky enough to witness such moments describe an almost dreamlike experience, a living cloud perched silently on a building, eyes bright and thoughtful, breath forming tiny puffs of mist. When winter arrives, Altaria adapts easily. Its insulating plumage traps body heat, while the moisture in its cloud wings resists freezing through subtle temperature control. It continues to fly over snowy forests and frozen lakes, song echoing faintly over quiet landscapes. Travelers have mistaken winter Altaria for drifting snow clouds illuminated by moonlight, only realizing the truth when the cloud moves deliberately against the wind. In battle strategy, Altaria excels in versatility. Its access to moves like Roost, Cotton Guard, and Perish Song grants unique defensive approaches. Meanwhile, offensive builds capitalize on Dragon-type and Fairy-type techniques to pressure foes who underestimate its strength. Trainers often remark that Altaria wins through patience and positioning rather than brute force, an echo of its natural temperament. Mega Altaria transforms this patience into overwhelming resilience. The added fairy type broadens its role, allowing it to challenge dragons that typically dominate skies. Draped in thicker, fluff-like clouds, Mega Altaria moves with regal assurance. The songs deepen, filled with layered harmonics that ripple across fields. This form suggests evolution not toward violence, but toward fuller self-expression, as though the dragon's inner harmony finally becomes visible. The soundscape of environments touched by Altaria carries its presence even after it leaves. Forest birds sometimes mimic fragments of its melodies. Wind patterns shift subtly, echoing musical rhythms. Long after sunset, echoes linger across valleys, like fading whispers of a lullaby carried by the air itself. Altaria's eyes convey emotions clearly: warmth when near friends, sharp focus when threatened, a distant, thoughtful gaze when navigating high altitudes. Unlike dragons whose strength isolates them, Altaria seems open, connected to everything it observes. It does not hoard, conquer, or seek solitude beyond practical needs. Its life centers around movement, voice, and quiet stewardship of the skies it calls home. Legends tell of rare moments when dozens of Altaria gather in one place. During meteor showers, they rise together, forming gentle spirals as streaks of light tear across the heavens. Their songs merge into one vast chord that resonates through earth and sky. Farmers stop working, children run outside, even wild Pokémon pause to listen. These sightings become generational stories, not tales of battle, but of beauty experienced collectively. Night flight reveals another facet of the dragon. Under starlight, its cloud wings glow faintly, catching moonbeams in soft halos. It drifts over sleeping forests and moonlit lakes, casting reflections that ripple with every glide. From distant vantage points, it appears like a moving constellation, a silent guardian drifting between worlds of dream and waking reality. Altaria serves as quiet contrast in the landscape of dragons. It proves that draconic identity does not require fear or destruction to command respect. Its music, presence, and unwavering gentleness stand alongside legends of fire, stone, and storm as equally powerful forces shaping the world. High above mountains and quiet towns alike, Altaria continues tracing slow arcs through the sky. Its wings trail mist, its voice drifts like distant, comforting light. And wherever its song travels, landscapes feel momentarily steadier, as if the world itself remembers, if only for a breath, that even among dragons built for power, there are those shaped by harmony, patience, and the quiet strength of peace. Gudra is a dragon wrapped not in armor or flames, but in softness, a paradox among dragons that often symbolize sharp edges, violent strength, or fierce territorial dominance. Its body is covered in smooth, gelatinous mucus that glistens under light, giving it a gentle, almost unthreatening appearance. Yet beneath that softness lies tremendous resilience, emotional depth, and surprising power. Gudra's story challenges expectations about what it means to be a dragon, not a relentless predator, but a creature defined by loyalty and empathy. Its evolutionary line begins with Gumi, a tiny slug-like Pokémon that seeks damp, shaded environments such as swamps, wetlands, and dense forests. Gumi relies heavily on moisture to survive. Without it, its body dries and weakens quickly. Evolution into Sliggoo marks the beginning of structural stability. Sliggoo develops a more defined body, small horns, and increased mobility, though it remains slow and vulnerable. It is during this stage that Sliggoo learns awareness, using antenna-like feelers to sense vibrations and navigate without relying solely on vision, an adaptation tied to environments where fog and rain obscure sight. When Sliggoo evolves into Gudra, the transformation feels dramatic. The dragon stands upright, limbs strong, body more cohesive, though still coated in slime. This slime serves critical functions, preventing dehydration, protecting against physical blows, and even absorbing kinetic impact like living armor. Opponents who underestimate Gudra often discover that their attacks simply slide off, only to be met by powerful counterstrikes delivered with surprising speed. Gudra's personality contrasts starkly with its draconic classification. It is deeply affectionate and strongly bonded to those it trusts. Pokédex entries across regions emphasize its loyalty. When Gudra chooses a trainer or community, it becomes fiercely protective, defending them with emotional determination that surpasses many dragons driven purely by instinct. This loyalty springs not from dominance, but from connection. Gudra thrives in environments where companionship exists. Isolation leaves it anxious and melancholic. In the wild, Gudra typically inhabits rain-heavy regions, forests thick with moss, marshlands where mist clings to the ground, or valleys where clouds settle for days. The constant moisture keeps its body pliable and healthy. During heavy downpours, Gudra appears most comfortable, standing with arms slightly open as raindrops cascade over its slime-coated form. To observers, it may seem as though the dragon absorbs the rain and becomes brighter, more energetic after storms. Ecologically, Gudra functions as a stabilizer. It feeds primarily on plant matter and certain soft-bodied Pokémon, yet it rarely overhunts. Instead, it protects areas rich in vegetation, driving away aggressive species that would damage ecosystems. Its presence often signals balanced wetlands where predators and prey coexist in natural rhythm. Smaller Pokémon sometimes shelter beneath Gudra's thick tail during severe weather, trusting the dragon's calm demeanor. Despite this gentle nature, Gudra's combat potential is remarkable. Its high special defense and offense make it both durable and threatening. Moves like Dragon Pulse, Muddy Water, and Power Whip highlight its connection to both dragon energy and the swampy environments it calls home. Sap Sipper, one of its key abilities, allows Gudra to absorb grass-type attacks, converting potential weaknesses into strength, a direct reflection of its adaptability. Instead of reacting with fear, Gudra transforms challenges into nourishment. Gudra's physical attacks also surprise opponents. Though it lacks claws as sharp as Salamence or the aerodynamic edge of Garchomp, it strikes with thick, weighted arms powered by dense muscle concealed beneath soft layers. The impact carries both strength and elasticity, like a heavy object wrapped in cushioning, devastating without appearing violent. This deceptive softness contributes to myths portraying Gudra as harmless until enraged. Emotionally, Gudra feels deeply. It reacts strongly to mistreatment, abandonment, or disrespect toward loved ones. Stories tell of Gudra traveling miles to find those who once cared for it, remembering voices and faces with uncanny accuracy. If someone harms its friends, however, Gudra's demeanor transforms. Its eyes sharpen, body posture tightens, and it becomes a relentless defender. Yet once the threat disappears, its aggression fades quickly, replaced again by calm kindness. Different regions interpret Gudra's slime through symbolic lenses. In some folklore, the slime represents adaptability, the ability to reshape oneself to survive. In others, it symbolizes emotional openness, as though Gudra carries visible vulnerability across its entire body. Children's stories sometimes describe Gudra as a dragon whose armor is softness, teaching that strength does not always require hardness or intimidation. The Hisuian variant of Gudra adds another layer to its narrative. In ancient Hisui, Gudra developed a steel shell-like appendage resembling a massive coil around its tail. This added protection suggests harsher predators or environmental pressures. The Hisuian Gudra remains gentle, but carries a visible sign of increased caution, a living metaphor for how kind creatures sometimes adapt extra protection when the world becomes harsher. This dual typing of dragon steel reinforces resilience through both emotional depth and literal armor. Historically, Gudra rarely appears in war accounts or destructive legends. Instead, tales depict it as a guardian of wetlands or companion to healers and farmers. Some settlements near marshlands believed Gudra's presence ensured fertile crops because it discouraged invasive species and maintained water distribution naturally. Travelers lost in fog sometimes described seeing a faint silhouette in the mist walking alongside them, acting as an unintimidating guide until roads became visible again. Gudra communicates through gentle gestures, tilting its head, swaying its tail, or giving soft nudges to express reassurance. When pleased, it sometimes hugs others, not always realizing its sticky coating leaves friends covered in slime. Pokémon, accustomed to interacting with Gudra, accept this as part of its affection. In communities where Gudra lives harmoniously with humans, children often laugh when hugged by it, running home coated in slippery residue like a playful badge of honor. Its sensitivity also brings vulnerability. Gudra dislikes harsh criticism and environments filled with tension or cruelty. Negative emotional climates seem to affect it physically, slime consistency thinning, movement slowing, eyes dimming. Trainers who work with Gudra quickly learn that encouragement and patience unlock far more potential than strict commands. In supportive conditions, Gudra becomes loyal beyond measure, training tirelessly to protect those it cares for. Scientifically, Gudra's mucus has fascinating properties. It resists toxins, preventing harmful chemicals from entering its body. It also seals wounds quickly, acting like a living bandage. Researchers study this substance for potential medicinal uses, exploring how similar compounds could be applied to healing techniques in both Pokémon and humans. The slime's slipperiness serves a defensive function too. Physical attacks slide off or lose momentum, reducing damage significantly. Gudra's eyes reveal much about its inner world. Large, expressive, and soft, they convey emotions clearly. Happiness, worry, relief, curiosity. Unlike dragons whose eyes burn with predatory intensity, Gudra's gaze feels deeply empathetic, almost parental. When it watches over smaller Pokémon, there is visible gentleness, as though every movement is calculated to avoid causing harm. In battle arenas, Gudra's role often focuses on endurance and counterattacks. It withstands damage patiently, then responds with precise strikes when opportunities appear. Moves like Rain Dance amplify its comfort zone. When rain falls, Gudra becomes invigorated, its body glistening with renewed vitality. Trainers often build strategies around weather, turning the battlefield into a miniature swamp where Gudra's strengths magnify. Travelers who journey through rainy forests occasionally stumble upon Gudra resting peacefully, leaning against large trees while droplets slide down its body. It rarely reacts aggressively unless approached recklessly. Instead, it lifts its head slowly, observes newcomers with mild curiosity, and decides whether to remain still or quietly move away. Many who encounter Gudra describe these experiences as strangely calming. Narratively, Gudra stands as a reminder that dragons can represent softness, vulnerability, and warmth while remaining undeniably powerful. It undermines stereotypes about ferocity being the only path to strength. This dragon thrives because of its emotional nature, not in spite of it. It defends because it cares. It grows strong because loyalty gives it purpose. At night, in swamps glowing faintly with bioluminescent plants and drifting fireflies, Gudra becomes part of the landscape. Its glistening form reflects small points of light, making it appear almost luminous. Mist curls around its body as frogs croak and rain taps leaves overhead. In these quiet environments, Gudra seems at complete peace, neither ruler nor outcast, but a gentle guardian living exactly where it belongs. When dawn breaks, Gudra often stretches, slime trailing softly from its limbs, then resumes quiet routines, checking territory, sharing food with companions, reinforcing safe paths through wetlands. Life around it continues smoothly, shaped by the reassuring presence of a dragon who rarely seeks attention, yet influences everything nearby through steady kindness. Ultimately, Gudra's legend is not written in ruins, scorched battlefields, or shattered mountains. It is written in rain-soaked forests, friendships built slowly, and acts of protection carried out without fanfare. Its power lies in devotion, a dragon whose greatest strength is not the damage it can inflict, but the comfort it brings and the bonds it refuses to abandon. Across wetlands, misty valleys, and rain-drenched forests, Gudra continues its quiet watch. Soft, resilient, and endlessly loyal, it stands as proof that even in a world filled with fierce, imposing dragons, there is room for those whose strength shines through gentleness, a different kind of dragon, carrying a heart as enduring as the landscapes it calls home.